The sky stretched overhead, an impossible, searing blue, so brilliant it made Will's head ache if he stared too long. It was the kind of color that felt too sharp, like the edge of a broken bottle catching the sunlight. Summer heat pressed down, thick and heavy, curling the dry grass at the edges of the fields. Somewhere behind him, cicadas buzzed, their endless drone blending into the whisper of the wind. Will wiped a forearm across his brow, smearing dust and sweat. He'd been sent to bring in the cows, but the stubborn creatures had wandered far into the pasture, their tails flicking lazily as they ignored his calls. He sighed, pushing forward through the tall grass, which scratched against his shins and whispered with every step. That was when he saw it. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light, the way the summer air warped and shimmered above the earth. But no, this was different. This was real. A figure stood in the grass, motionless. It was barely taller than he was, its frame too slender, its limbs too long. The sunlight played strangely across its body, revealing a surface that shifted, as if woven from liquid. Its skin shimmered, the deep fluid blue of water under moonlight. And then he saw its eyes. Twin embers, glowing red, locked onto him. Will's breath hitched, his fingers clenched into his palms. He wanted to move, to run, to shout, but his body refused to obey. The thing tilted its head, the movement unnervingly smooth. Then, slowly it took a step forward. Will stumbled back, his heel catching on a root, and he nearly fell. But the creature didn't lunge, didn't chase. It only watched, its long arms hanging loose at its sides, as if waiting. His throat felt dry. When he finally managed to find his voice, it came out hoarse, barely more than a whisper. Who are you?" The wind rustled the grass between them, swallowing the words as soon as they left his mouth. The creature remained silent. Then, something strange happened. The air around it seemed to hum, a vibration too deep to hear, but strong enough to feel. It thrummed in his bones, in his teeth, a low resonance that sent a shiver crawling up his spine. And then, images. Not words, not sounds, but a flood of images poured into his mind. A sky, the same luminous blue as the creature's skin. Towers that reached toward the heavens, glowing softly like stars. And then, fire, collapse. Darkness spreading like ink through water, swallowing everything. A feeling of loss. A sorrow so vast and unbearable, it stole the breath from his lungs. The creature was alone. Will blinked, dazed, his heart pounded. The hum softened, gentler now, as if waiting. "You're lost," he whispered. The creature tilted its head again, and for the first time, Will thought he saw something shift in its gaze, a flicker of understanding. Carefully, hesitantly, it lifted one hand. Long, delicate fingers trembled slightly as it reached out. Will's pulse roared in his ears. Every instinct told him to turn, to run, to put as much distance between himself and this impossible thing as he could. But he didn't. Something in the creature's stance, something in the aching loneliness he had felt as his mind flooded with its memories, held him still. Slowly, cautiously, he reached out. His sunburned fingers brushed against the creature's skin. It was cool. Not cold, not lifeless, but smooth and impossibly light, like touching a current of air. And then, another flood of images, but this time they were different. Softer. Warmer. He saw himself. Standing in the field, small and afraid, but through the creature's eyes, he wasn't small at all. He was bright. A flickering light in the vastness of the world. Tears burned at the corners of his eyes, and he didn't understand why. He only knew that some part of him, some part he hadn't realized was empty, was being filled. The creature watched him, its red eyes dimming slightly, softening. For the first time, Will thought it looked peaceful. He swallowed hard, voice thick. "It's okay," he whispered. He wasn't sure if he was saying it to the creature or to himself. "You're not alone, not right now." The hum deepened, vibrating through his chest, and then slowly, the creature pulled away. Its fingers slipped from his, the contact breaking. It straightened, gazing at him for a moment longer. Then, with slow, deliberate steps, it turned. Will wanted to call after it, wanted to ask it to stay, but the words wouldn't come. He could only watch as the shimmering figure stepped back into the grass, its form fading, melting into the golden waves until it was gone. The air was still again, Will stood there for a long time, the heat pressing down on him, the distant lowing of the cows breaking the silence. Eventually, they wandered back, meandering toward him as if nothing had happened. But something had. Something inside him had changed, though he didn't have the words for it. That night, as the first stars blinked into the sky, Will climbed onto the roof of the barn and lay there, staring up at the endless stretch of darkness. For the first time, it didn't feel so empty. Somewhere out there, the creature was still wandering, and maybe, just maybe, it carried a piece of him, the same way he carried a piece of it. The thought made the vastness of the universe feel just a little smaller,